Greetings and welcome to Black Hat USA 2010. This is the special events track, and we are you're here for the continuation and finale of Hacker Court. It's a small session, so please feel free to come to the center. And to give a recap of the first half and start the second, I present to you Richard Salgado, who's playing the judge.
So where we left this before the break was we had heard some opening arguments about a case in which a business that was run by Biz Zuckerson had an intruder come into the laptop of Biz and enable the webcam and do some other nefarious stuff on the machine. After an investigation that was led by their chief security officer, they got somewhere but not very far, so they called in the police who furthered the investigation, ultimately leading to the seizure of a computer by the defendant where they found some of the proceeds of the hack of Biz's laptop. We heard that there were 3 charges that were brought against the defendant. One, for enabling the webcam and thereby capturing communications that would be illegal under the Wiretap Act, so the prosecution's theory would hold. Second, that the evidence showed that the defendant, according to the prosecution, had also intercepted instant messenger communications, also under the government's theory, a Wiretap Act violation. And third, that in the course of the intrusion on the laptop, the defendant was able to obtain some information, a violation of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, the federal hacking statute in the United States. And you've heard from a series of witnesses. At the close of the prosecution's case, so we've heard from all the prosecution's witnesses, we had a motion from the defense counsel, which is standard in criminal trials, to acquit the defendant, meaning to find the defendant not guilty, on the theory that the government had failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt in its own case the essential elements of any of the crimes. And the defense can make this motion even without having presented its own case, if it's going to present a case, because it's up to the prosecution to have to be able to show the elements of the crime beyond a reasonable doubt. So that was the motion we heard right before we took a break. The focus of that motion was really on 2 points. One, that the charge against the defendant for illegally intercepting oral communications fails because there was no interception of the human voice. It was only video that was captured, and the statute requires some oral communication being acquired. The defense counsel provided a litany of cases that suggest this is accurate. The prosecution valiantly tried to save what this court would find as being an obviously bad charge to bring against the defendant in this case by arguing essentially policy grounds, that we ought to have a statute that says that video surveillance of this nature is illegal. But as Mr. Bankston points out, and I'm now reprising my role as the judge.
Just play the video just so the jury can have a chance to see it?
To show the video of the, oh sure, so this is the video of that was captured. And you can't hear any sound.
Is that their badges from last year at Black Hat? Because certainly this isn't from yesterday or minutes ago.
These are badges issued at the party, apparently. And is that Bieber in the back?
That's Bieber in the back, yeah.
The bald guy?
There's Karl Rove, I believe.
Okay.
That was our video.
So that's the video that was allegedly intercepted in violation of the oral interception provision of the Wiretap Act. So as the judicial official here, my job would be to rule on whether the prosecution after its case has failed to present a case that was worthy of finding the defendant guilty. And in this case, I will so find that although the statute provides for that there are some types of information that you cannot intercept, it does not include pure video. And as bad a policy matter as that may be, as the prosecution has indicated, that's a matter for Congress to take up and not an issue that the court will suddenly and out of whole cloth impose criminal liability onto a defendant. So my ruling number 1 is we will dismiss count number 1. You would not, as jurors, actually hear this. As jurors, you're going to magically find that this suddenly became a case only 2 counts and no longer 3 counts. You wouldn't be advised of all the ins and outs of this. But given our lack of formality here, you're in on that. The second argument the defense counsel raised was that the prosecution didn't show financial motive or commercial advantage behind the alleged conduct that would make the hack into the machine a felony. So the argument is, in order to show a felony hacking to obtain information, the motive of the defendant had to be to make some kind of profit. I am, as the judge, going to deny the defense motion to dismiss on that ground and leave it up to the jury to decide whether there's enough evidence to show the motive of the defendant was to make some kind of profit. And I will be instructing the jury on some of the grounds to decide that issue. So at this point, I'm granting the motion to dismiss count 1, I'm denying the motion to dismiss count 3, and I'm denying the overall motion to dismiss all counts on failure of the prosecution to sufficiently prove its case. Having ruled on that, we will now move on to the next section of the trial. We'll bring the jurors back in, you're here, and now I'll turn to the defense counsel. Defense, do you have any case you would like to bring?
Yes, Your Honor.
We'd like to call Joel Hobbs to the stand.
Mr. Hobbs, will you raise your left hand, please? Do you promise to tell the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Mr. Hobbs, could you state your name and title for the record?
My name is Joel Hobbs. I'm a principal security analyst.
And give a little bit about your background.
I am qualified for doing security reviews of applications, systems, and forensics work.
I'd like to remind the judge that Mr. Hobbs has been previously qualified as an expert in computer and network forensics and computer security.
I remember the hearing well. You are qualified to testify as an expert.
Okay, Mr. Hobbs, have you reviewed any of the evidence in this relating to this case?
Yes, I've analyzed image copies of the hard drives from 3 computers, Mr. Zuckerson's laptop, the computer belonging to an employee named Mr. Brutish, and the computer seized from the defendant. I've also analyzed the architecture of the MyTwitFace network.
And did the prosecution give you copies of the original evidence?
No, I was given image copies of the 3 hard drives.
And what were you looking for?
I was trying to reconstruct exactly how Mr. Zuckerson's laptop was compromised, and I was trying to trace how 3 pieces of evidence were generated: the silent video of the party, the screenshot of the IM conversation, and the PowerPoint file.
All right, let's start with the compromise of the laptop. Did you determine how the laptop was compromised?
Yes. As it happens, my firm discovered a flaw in the software used by the Lower Marion School District. I looked first through the compromised computers to see if a similar flaw was used to access Mr. Zuckerson's laptop.
What did you learn?
In the Lower Marion case, the school district used a software package called LandRev by a company called Absolute Software. The problem with LandRev turned out to be the way it authenticated with the server.
And what was wrong with the authentication?
Well, when a computer running LandRev tried to phone home, it first verified itself to the authorized server by encrypting a message with a shared key.
Well, what was wrong with the key?
Well, the LandRev software had the key hard-coded into the binary, and it was thus very easy to recover with a simple hex editor.
And what was the key?
Well, in the Lower Marion case, it turned out to be lines from a German poem.
Turning to this case, did the Absolute Manage software used by laptops on MyTwitFace suffer from the same problem?
Yes, I found the key hard-coded in the software.
Was this how Mr. Zuckerson's laptop was compromised?
It appears so. I learned a lot when I looked at Mr. Brutish's desktop computer.
What did you learn?
On Mr. Brutish's computer, I found a piece of software that started up with the system. I call it Solitary, Poor, and Nasty, or SPN.
What does SPN do?
I did an extensive analysis of SPN. SPN performs what computer security experts call a man-in-the-middle attack.
Could you explain a man-in-the-middle attack? What is this?
SPN pretends to be a control server for Ambiguous Manage. When a computer running the Ambiguous Manage surveillance system first tries to register with the AM server on the network, the computer running SPN, in this case Mr. Brutish's, mimics the responses that would be sent by the AM server.
Using the hard-coded key.
Yeah, that's an important part of it. SPN mimics everything the server does, down to the key, and it does so very quickly. So quickly that the client computer is fooled into trusting it.
And what can SPN do once it becomes the server?
Anything Ambiguous Manage can do.
Could you give some examples?
It can take screenshots. It can turn on the laptop's camera. It can download files from the laptop.
Okay, so the functionality that was built in to that enabled this evidence to be created was already built into the software that was installed by MyTwitFace.
That's right.
Let's talk about the screenshot. What happens when someone uses SPN to tell a client to take a screenshot?
Well, the computer running the client copies all of the bits in the computer's video memory into a file on the client computer.
And is this screenshot transmitted across a network?
Well, not immediately.
Well, so how do the screenshots get pulled off the computer?
Well, the AM API includes a call for sending a file to another computer using the file transfer protocol.
All right, so just to clarify, because this is important, you're saying that the screen grab exploit didn't capture any instant messaging data as it was sent between the CPU and the network interface?
No, it grabs the content directly from the video buffer that feeds the monitor.
No further questions.
So it's Mr. Hobbs. Did you take this SPN code that was running on Mr. Brutish's computer and compare it to anything on Weasel's computer? You said you had images of that too.
Yes.
And what did you discover?
Well, Weasel's computer had a binary that matched the binary on Brutish's computer.
Is my mic on? Hello? Yeah, I think it's on. Was this an exact match?
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about this Ambiguous Manage product again. Can you tell, based on the way you've deciphered and untangled the way this all happened, whether the CEO's laptop was connected to a network at the time the screenshot was taken?
Well, it had to been to get the command from the Mimic server.
And so, I'm sorry if I'm being slow, what would have happened if the laptop wasn't connected to any network at that moment in time?
Well, the server wouldn't have been able to transmit the message to make the screenshot.
All right, so let's talk a little bit more about this network. You said, I think, you analyzed the network diagram of the MyTwitFace network. Is that correct?
Yeah, they all have wireless and wired network cards and TCP IP stacks.
And so they're all, again, just to be slow, they're connected to the internet, these computers?
Yes.
Okay. And so can you tell if at the moment these computers were compromised, they were in fact connected to the internet at the time the screenshot was made?
Well, as I said, Mr. Bruce's computer and Mr. Zuckerson's computer had to have been communicating in order for the screenshot to have been made. And every computer on the network could access the internet.
Okay, thank you. No further questions, John.
Can you redirect, Mr. Opsahl? Okay. You're dismissed. Thank you. Any additional witnesses?
Yes, sir. We would like to call to the stand the defendant, Mr. Weasel.
Dun dun. They do it every year.
Mr. Weasel, would you raise your left hand? Do you agree to et cetera, et cetera?
Et cetera, et cetera.
Please state your name for the record.
Weasel.
And what is your title?
Titles are for narcissists. I'm senior software engineer for Vespora? Vapor-espora? Vapor-espora, thank you.
Yes. Did you have a prior relationship with MyTwitFace?
Yes, I worked there previously.
And what did you do there?
Senior software engineer.
When did you leave MyTwitFace?
About 2 years ago.
And why did you leave?
I had a difference of opinion with management over the use of the customer data and violations of privacy, in my opinion.
And where do you work now?
I work for myself doing contributing to the open source project.
Okay. So are you an employee of?
I am not.
Do you receive a salary?
No, I do not.
And what is this Vapor-espora project?
It's an open source peer-to-peer social network system that's focused purely on privacy of the user's data. It does end-to-end encryption, and it has decentralized administration.
And would you say that Vapor-espora is your project?
No, it's not. It's open source. It's everyone's project.
So do you have any ownership interest in it?
No, I do not.
Okay. So what do you do for money?
I do okay. I get by. I live simply. I've got plenty of money left over from when I worked with MyTwitFace.
Are you responsible for the screenshots and videos of Biz Zuckerson that we've been talking about today?